As consumers face near record high credit card balances and rising financial pressures, we're taking a look into what is driving this recent surge of debt and how you may be better positioned to manage your own debt heading into Q4. Here to break it all down is senior industry analyst at Bankrate, Ted Rossman. Ted, welcome back. Nice to have you as always.
Good to be here. Thank you.
So if you look at the top line prints, the headlines here, we see U.S. consumers currently owe about $1.2 trillion combined in credit card debts, just shy of an overall record. Talk to me about the key factors, the considerations you think, Ted, that are really fueling that surge.
It sounds shocking. I would caution that it's not all bad because we're talking about balances here. The New York Fed's not distinguishing between what's paid in full at the end of the month and what's true debt carried from month to month at an average interest rate around 20%. We know that just over half of cardholders typically pay in full every month. So for them, you could actually see their balances as a good thing for the overall economy just because it shows economic growth, population growth. People are using more cards and less cash. If you're paying it off right away, you're getting rewards, you're getting buyer protections and convenience, and not owing interest. Now, if you're in the 46% who are carrying debt from month to month, that part is more worrisome. That's where you're paying 20% on average. And that's where a lot of these people are stuck in debt year after year, sadly.
What is the most concerning component to you right now about the relationship between the U.S. consumer and, let's say more specifically, credit card debt with high APYs?
Well, it's interesting because consumer sentiment has been down in the dumps for years. I mean, it's really not recovered from the pandemic, and it's taken another leg down recently because of tariff worries. Things have stabilized a little bit, but still very depressed relative to pre-pandemic norms. Actual economic data has come in much more positive when we're talking about consumer spending, economic growth. Certainly the job market has been a real strength. Chase actually talked about this during their recent earnings call. Their CFO basically said that when the unemployment rate is as low as it is, 4.1%, there's really only so much trouble people can get into with delinquencies. I mean, in general, banks are feeling pretty good about risk right now. Chase is a good example. They actually just recently refreshed their Sapphire Reserve card, that popular luxury travel card. This is highlighting some of the economic inequality, if you will, that if you have a good income, if you have a good credit score, things are good. The cutbacks are more for people with lower incomes and lower credit scores, and that's where more of the trouble is for delinquencies and debt. Now, these are not necessarily new trends, but I do say the gap has widened in recent years, and the credit card market in particular is very much the proverbial tale of two cities. You've got the transactors who pay in full and love their rewards, and then you've got the revolvers that are carrying really expensive debt.
How much worse has this so-called bifurcated economy? When you say the last few years, I assume you mean largely from the start of the increase of interest rates post-COVID, right? This sort of bifurcated economy, the haves and the have-nots. If you're a saver, hey, you love high interest rates, you love your high-yield savings accounts and your certificates of deposit. But if you're a borrower with high interest rates, you really continue to feel the squeeze. Are we still sort of seeing that dual picture play itself out?
That time frame sounds about right. I might even go a little bit earlier, maybe the start of 2021. That was when credit card balances bottomed out, because we have to remember that they actually fell quite a bit early in the pandemic. From the end of 2019 to the beginning of 2021, credit card balances fell 17%. And that's very unusual. That was really all about stimulus money going to debt payoff, people spending less because of the pandemic. We knew that wasn't going to last. But the trend upward has been really steep. It's actually exceeded the pre-pandemic norm. The growth rate has leveled off a bit lately, but credit card balances are almost 60% higher now than they were at the start of 2021. That's been a really steep run up. We saw a big increase in delinquencies, especially in 2021, 22, even some at 23. Now, since then, things have leveled off. The delinquency picture that's most complicated right now is student loans. Credit cards and auto loans have faded a bit to the back burner. Still a little elevated, but stabilizing. Student loans are one to watch. The delinquency rate there is very high. TransUnion says about a third of federal student loan borrowers are seriously delinquent. That one is lagging because of the long payment pause. And the 1-year on-ramp expired last fall. And, we're actually still in the fairly early stages of those delinquencies really starting to show up on credit reports. So I would be more concerned about student loans now than credit cards or auto loans.
You have any Bankrate research or take on the buy now, pay later phenomenon? How is that playing into all of this?
That's an interesting sidebar to all this because it is still small relative to the credit card market. I've seen estimates anywhere from 1 to 3% of the credit card market, but it's growing rapidly. And especially among young adults, a lot of people in their 20s are using buy now, pay later, either by choice or increasingly out of necessity. Maybe they can't get a credit card and they need to buy things. More people are financing gas and groceries and food delivery and other kind of daily expenses. I view buy now, pay later as a really smart business model. People like the installments, they like the ability to spread out their cash flow. Like credit cards, though, it can be used to your advantage or your disadvantage. It does make me nervous that more people are using this for everyday things because they're kicking the can down the road. And even $20 here and $50 there, I mean, it's still debt. People are still falling behind in some cases. They're potentially overspending. Buy now, pay later is one to watch, especially as we head towards the holiday season where it feels like every year we see double digit growth over the previous year.
Really interested in this. First of all, I foremost want to ask you about tips you have for people that may still need to pay off a fair bit of credit card debt. But also, there's an interesting kind of side conversation with regards to people who are looking at the bull market in equities and they're saying, well, I may be carrying around some month to month credit card debt and I don't want to get hit with those high interest rates. But at the same time, maybe if I get my paycheck, I don't want to entirely, completely pay off all that credit card debt because still do want to invest. I want to have some skin in the game as this ongoing bull market, the AI fueled trade is going. And I don't want to be left out simply because I've got this albatross of the credit card debt. How would you most advise people sort of consider how to navigate their own personal credit card situation on the backdrop of what's going on broadly with the markets?
Credit card debt is one to prioritize because the average interest rate is about 20%. Some people are paying 25, 30%, sometimes even more. It's really hard to get that return on your investments. Now, maybe you get lucky, the market has a really good year or you pick the right stock, but you're not going to get that sort of return on a consistent basis, at least without taking on a lot of risk. I would say it's generally better to pay off the debt first. Now, maybe there are a few exceptions, like maybe you at least contribute enough to the 401k to get the employer match. I mean, that's free money. Maybe you're contributing 3% or 5 or 6% to your 401k or something like that. But in general, this is high cost debt that you want to pay off right away. Savings versus credit card debt is an interesting debate because you do need some rainy day funds. And if you don't have the rainy day fund, well, then the next car repair or medical bill is just going to load up the credit card. Savings and debt payoff can be pursued simultaneously. I wouldn't do a ton of investing, though, if I'm paying 20% on my credit cards. It makes sense to get a 0% balance transfer card, something like the US Bank Shield Visa, no interest for 24 months. Really focus on paying down the credit card debt first before you get too crazy with investments or rewards too. I mean, don't pay 20% interest to get 2 or 3% in cash back or airline miles. Credit card debt is much more expensive than most other forms of debt.
Yeah, Ted, while I still have you, how about the flip side? How about for savers out there? I've had so many conversations with analysts who say, yeah, maybe you've got your relationship with the big banks, a JP Morgan, Chase, and Amex, but oftentimes we know it's the regional banks that are not household names. To incentivize you to park your money with them, they will oftentimes give you more advantageous rates for high yield savings and CDs or something. How do you advise people shop around if they are lucky enough to be in the saver column?
This is a silver lining to the fact that the Fed has kept rates higher for longer. You can get almost 4.5% on a totally liquid, totally federally insured savings account. Peak Bank is at the top of the list, 4.35%. Right behind that, we have others like Everbank and Biobank. And these are not necessarily household names, but they're all FDIC insured. It's a great place to park your emergency savings fund. Back to that earlier point about emergency savings versus credit card debt, these are really two sides of the same coin. It's often an emergency expense that lands people in credit card debt. So even if we say, yeah, we'd love you to have 6 months of expenses in the bank, you're going to get there over time. But even that first $500 or that first $1,000 is often enough of a buffer. It's important to be pursuing these simultaneously. Have money transferred from every paycheck into a dedicated savings account and get the best return you can. The big banks are not offering much, but online, community banks, credit unions, that's where you find the better rates.
Compound interest is, in fact, the eighth wonder of the world. Ted Rossman, senior industry analyst at Bankrate. Always love our conversations about the state of personal finance. Thanks for being here as always.
My pleasure. Thank you.